Good morning, everyone. We are live. Good morning, everybody. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 12th of December, and I'd just like to welcome you all to the Rural and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Nicky Manterfield, and I'm the chairman of the committee, and I'll be chairing today's meeting. To my left is my vice chair, Councillor Stephen Cuddington. We're not expecting the fire alarm to sound today. If the alarm does go off, please leave the building at the nearest exit, the main staircase at the back of the room, and the assembly point is outside on the green. Please can we ensure that the mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent during the meeting and away from the microphones, please. Thank you. Please be aware that the meeting is being recorded and being live streamed via the public eye on the Council's website. Please can we ensure that your microphones are turned off while others are speaking. And I'd like to welcome all councillors, officers and public who are joining our meeting today. We will now begin to work our way through today's agenda. Agenda item 1, public speaking. Do we have any today, Josh?
Thank you, Chairman. No public speakers today.
Lovely, thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Vanessa Smith, substituted by Councillor Charmaine Morgan, from Councillor Dixon Warren, substituted by Councillor Johnson, from Councillor Dennison, substituted from Councillor Harrison, and from Councillor Peter Stevens, substituted by Councillor Matt Bailey. Also being notified that the Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for People and Communities won't be present. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you councillors that are substituting. We like a full committee, so I'm very grateful. Thank you. Agenda item 3, disclosure of interest. Members are asked to disclose any interest in matters for consideration at the meeting. You can do this now, or you can do it as we move through the agenda. Thank you. Agenda item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of October. Just concerns about kind of statements rather than grammar, please, if you have any. Are we all happy? I'm happy. I'd quite like to... I think Councillor Hamilton's going to propose, if that's all right. And Councillor Ramman to second. And can we have a vote on that, please, for those that were present? Those against, and any abstentions? Lovely, thank you. Agenda item 5, announcements or updates from the Leader of the Council, Cabinet Members or the Head of Paid Services. I haven't been informed of any. I'm just going to ask Joshua. Nope. None. Agenda item 6, Corporate Plan 2024 to 2027 Key Performance Indicators. And, oh, I've skipped, sorry, gone too far. Who's presenting? Is it Charles?
Charles is...
Oh, sorry, Debbie. Debbie Roberts to present, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. This is on behalf of Councillor Knowles, who's attended all of the scrutiny committees. This is actually the last one that we're going to for this set of data. But I know if he was here, he would be saying that the report outlines our performance against our corporate plan 24-27 and our key performance indicators for quarter 2. And only actions within the remit of this committee are presented here today. Performance are against 10 actions for this committee. 8 are green rated, which means they are on or above target. 2 are rated as amber, which means they're only off target by less than 10%, where a milestone is achieved. 0 actions are rated red, which are significantly below or planned target. At the end of this committee round, as I said, this is the last one for Scrutiny Committee. All reports are going to be uploaded to our performance reporting page on the website in the new KPI Power BI dashboard. There is an all-member briefing planned on the dashboard and our wider efforts to enhance transparency planned for the new year for all members. I'm happy to take any questions, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Morgan?
On connecting communities, COM7, it's telling us, which is good, that we're on target. But can I just clarify, because obviously it's referring to engaging, and it's an ongoing process. So I just wonder how we are actually measuring that on an ongoing basis, as opposed to thinking we've done a set of engagements and therefore we've ticked a box. Can we just clarify that, please?
Debbie, you're at...
I believe that response would be best to come from Claire Moses, as head of that service area, if you're happy for us to take that as a ways in action.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we will do. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? No? I've got one around COM9, the connecting communities. I mean, it says that we're below target slightly on this. Is it about staffing issues? About question 2, it says around 39% of the office in the police commission. The project is progressing well, which I'm really pleased to see, and delivered by the Safer Streets coordinator. But then it says it's identified that there's kind of issues around police and crime commissioner funding has been spent. But is this to do with more the police rather than ourselves? Just to clarify the data, really.
Hi. So those figures were around the hour patrols that we do on a Wednesday, Friday and Saturday nights. During the summer months, because we're using staff that are already working full-time and with holidays and everything, levels did drop. We're budgeted for about 128 hours a month. So in October we did 166, and November we did 233, because there were other initiatives like Crime Intervention Week and stuff like that where we had extra staff on. So actually those figures have probably doubled from what the original was. It's just purely over the summer months where we had a lack of staff.
No, that's great. I think it's really important just to kind of clarify that, so because it looks quite negative, but really it's not. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Harrison.
It's not a question, Chair. I'd just like to come back and say, as the Safer Streets are predominantly in my ward, getting great feedback on this from businesses and members of the public alike. So I'd just like to say I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Morgan?
I would just like to say that in particular the feedback, the awareness of our officers doing the patrols in Dysart Park, for example, is really appreciated. My understanding is that there's as it was indicated, limited budget, and I have requested a meeting with Mark Jones, because I think this needs to be continuing. It really is making a huge difference, gap filling where we haven't got that police presence.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morgan. Any other comments? No? Then we'll move on. It is just an item for noting, I believe. So item 7, agenda item 7, the Armed Forces Covenant update. Before we actually go on to this, I'm going to ask if we can defer to the February meeting. There's just been some concerns that the discussion around it, without the actual member who is the champion, would be better held with him present. So I have received a statement from Councillor Dixon Warren, but we just feel that it's a better discussion if he's here to participate. So he's so passionate about it, I do feel that it's better if we push that one back to February. Fortunately, it couldn't be done until the meeting, so that's why I'm asking you if you would support me in that. Thank you. So you're happy to second, Councillor Harrison? So if we can vote on that, that'd be great. Lovely, thank you. I do appreciate that. I don't like to do that within a meeting, but I do think it's the best thing for this, so thank you. Oh, we are going quickly. I'm going to slow down because I'm waiting for someone to come to do any other business with me. Agenda item 7. Oh no, sorry, 8 is the SK Community Awards 2024. And if I can hand over to Cara Drury, please, to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report this morning provides a review of the SK Community Awards for 2024 from launch through to the celebratory event which was held in November. As the report explains, the awards are an annual celebration of the many volunteers across our district who selflessly give their time and energy to support their communities. The awards came about as a direct response to the amazing upsurge in volunteering and community support during the COVID pandemic. I'm sure members can imagine the incredible numbers of nominations we had that first year. It is true to say, however, that the numbers have dwindled since then. The categories have changed to reflect this over the years, and we've had a category with little or no interest. It's been removed or replaced as we've gone on if we've had no nominations into, or very few nominations into that particular category. Please don't think I'm being negative about the awards, far from it. We have nominations every time for some of the most amazing acts of kindness, bravery and community support. We would, however, like to work with members of Oral and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee to review the awards, the categories, the timing of the launch and the event, the nomination process, etc., so that we can take it into next year refreshed. To that end, through you, Chair, members will have seen in the report the recommendation to form a working group of officers and members from this committee, if you'd like to volunteer, through the Chair, to review what we have and where we'd collectively like to go with it, and then bring the findings back to the full committee for recommendation. I don't think this will be an onerous task. It may actually only take one meeting if we are of one mind. I mean, if anybody at this point has any questions, Chair, I'm happy to take them, but other than that, I'd like to talk about the working group, if that's okay.
Thank you, Carol. Having been involved in these community awards for a couple of years, on the outside really, it's such a privilege and such an eye-opener, and I'm very passionate about this. To see what our communities do to support our communities is just amazing. And I do think that it just needs to change a little bit, how we do the awards. I absolutely think, and a total advocate, that we do it. The night itself, I've been a couple of times now, is amazing. It's so well run, and the people that are there to get the awards are just so humbled by it. They don't want that recognition most of the time. They just do what they do because they do. And for us to take one evening a year to say thank you, to support our residents and our communities, is just so, so important. So I would like to propose that I'd like to be part of the working group, please, if I may. And how many are we kind of thinking, Carol? Are we just thinking core number, or...?
To be honest, Chair, it doesn't need to be a big group, but I'm happy to sit with anybody that's actually interested in, and would like to take it forward.
That's lovely. So I would definitely like to be a member. Have we got any other volunteers within the committee? Thank you, Steve. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine, Tim, because you were very often visitor, so I'm more than happy to accept your help on this one. Thank you. Pam and Councillor Bird and Councillor Morgan as well, Carol, if that's good, and Councillor Ledenham say that's great. Thank you. Yes, please.
I was just going to suggest, if I may, Chair, that you might want to open it up to all members. It's one of these things, and then see how many you get.
I would like to, but I also would like to kind of keep it a bit snug, so that we can kind of, it's kind of my baby, Councillor Morgan, so I quite like it to stay with us. So yes, I am always willing for other councillors to be involved, however I want to keep this one. So thank you for that. And I'm going to be in trouble for that, I know. But thank you, and again, I just want to reflect what a good night, and how amazing it is, and the age range is just profound. You know, we get some real young ones to some really maturer members of the community that just put their heart and soul into it, and it is just amazing. And on a personal note, I always take my family and my 10-year-old to actually listen to hear what things go on in the community, because I think it's just such a good learning curve, and I just think we do need a change of direction really moving forward. So yeah, excellent. Thank you for everyone that's volunteered for that. Carol, did you want to say any more?
Nothing more than I'll set up a meeting in the new year for the working group, and in time that we can then feed back to your next meeting, Chair. Yeah.
Lovely, that's great. Thank you for that. So, any other comments? Councillor Bird.
Yes, thank you. I'm not entirely sure, but would it be important also to ensure we have representation from each of the towns and sort of rural communities within that, so that it does cover the whole district? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Carol.
Just to say that when we do the judging panel, that's exactly how that judging panel is established, so that we have a representative for each of the towns and a rural ward, so that we've got a spread. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Bird. Any other comments? Councillor sorry, Habib.
Yeah, I would like to point out that the numbers are going down on the nomination. Can we raise some more awareness in our local online portals and things to get some more nomination?
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the working group really, of how we kind of move it forward and get more kind of publicity out there that we want to recognise our residents. But absolutely, we'll note that. Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
So I just wanted to clarify my position, because like Councillor Harrison, I'm substituting today. But I would be very keen to be involved. So work with lots of the local groups. So.
Councillor Morgan, I'm more than happy, because again, you're a very regular attender to the committee, and where I'm trying to keep it narrow, those that kind of support us as a committee, you're more than welcome to be on the working group, by all means. So thank you. If there's no further comments, no, and thank you for bringing it, Carol. You know, I'm not quite as passionate as you, but nearly. So thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 9, the work programme. So February's meeting's becoming very busy, which I like. We have just moved a couple of things onto February. So we have just added our workshop feedback, and we've added the armed forces. So, looking at it, have we got any other kind of ideas or anything moving forward? It won't fit into February by any means, but anything else that the committee wants to bring forward? I mean, March has got things in, but we can, I'm always happy. I know we've got some unscheduled things here. So, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you. As a member of the LCC Health Scrutiny Committee, there have been a few things coming up, and I thought actually your committee might be interested, perhaps like an overview of some of the bigger issues emerging, just as an overview. I'd be happy to do that feedback.
Yeah, that'd be great. You know what my position on this, more than happy to hear it. I would leave the room currently at that if it's too controversial. But if it's just an update, then yes. Yeah, please do. We'll pop it on the work programme. Absolutely. Councillor Bailey?
Thank you, Chair. Just based on obviously the motion that passed at full council around the verbal update that's due to come to this committee, can we just add it onto the work plan so it doesn't get forgotten about? Obviously, whenever that's ready, that's great, but just so we just don't lose track of that. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Anything else? Mr Wiles.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind members here today that we've got the Budget Joint Scrutiny meeting on the 14th of January, and of course this Scrutiny Committee is pivotal in that debate, so as many members that represent this committee to come along would be really helpful. And I think just for your 13th of February work programme, the first item of consideration of the corporate plan in the context of farming agricultural food producers. I think to help officers, it just might be helpful if the context of that particular item could be clarified for officers, because obviously we're trying to write a report to ensure your committee has a meaningful debate, but I think as a heading we're not quite clear what the purpose of that report would be.
Absolutely, thank you for that, Mr Wells. I was just discussing that pre-meeting actually, and I want it to be an officer's minimal report. I think because it's something we've called as a committee or as an individual, I think the emphasis is on the individual bringing it. There might be just some data, but I will absolutely get back to the officers quite quickly with that information that we require from yourselves. So thank you for that. Councillor Morgan.
On that point, I requested, I was going to just do background, I was going to do a motion for council, and after some discussion with Councillor Baxter, felt that actually it would be appropriate to bring the item here. Basically, initially, it was, sorry, I can't see you, Rich, I do apologise, I'm talking to the I guess good. Initially, it was a response to the concerns raised by the farmers regarding the inheritance tax. But I did quite a lot of research and realised that actually there were that was kind of like one of many issues. And when I looked at our corporate plan, recognised that it was very, very thin on the ground, shall we say, regarding any of our agriculture stroke farming community, so it needs bolstering. I did actually forward, I'm a bit disappointed you didn't get it, because I actually forwarded my research to our Democratic Services team, so I'm happy to separately have a word and go through that so you're pre-prepared and can use the material.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Councillor Morgan. So it will be with you shortly on the officers, Richard, all right. Any other comments? Carol?
Can I bring a report on the community fund to the committee, please, Chair?
Yes, please. Is there an urgency for it, Carol, just so that we're aware of the planning?
The last funding round will be February,
Okay.
and then we start again in May, so I could do either February or March, whichever.
Okay. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? No? Right, we shall move on to agenda item 10. And I'm really disappointed that we've got here before Hoppis 10, because I'm expecting Councillor Trotter to give us an update. However, Councillor Ledenham.
You want some time, Philip? Don't laugh. So, I mean, Richard's going to tell you about the benefits of having fish and how calming effect they are. It's just to let the committee know that obviously in February we've invited the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. They was unable to attend to do a presentation on today's meeting due to annual leave, but they've accepted to come on February's meeting, and that will give the committee an insight to everything what Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership does, from community speed watch to the work they do with schools and the communities and everything else. And the guy who's coming, his name's Stephen Batchelor. He will be present on the day, so if there is any areas you want to know more about, he's asked me to let him know in advance. If not, he'll just do a general presentation on how active they are within the county and give us all a chance to ask questions if we do have any concerns with the Road Safety Partnership, because they do cover a wide range of everything, like I say, from speed watch to signage to work they do with the schools and everything else. So, thank you, Chair.
That's lovely, Councillor Ledenham. And I went and attended a speed watch training session the other night with Councillor Bailey, and it is really interesting. And I can now hold a speed gun. That's all I'm saying. So watch out, Harlexton. If there's no other comments, and we are done, I have got no urgent business, and it's a real shame that Councillor Trotter's not made it in time, because we're going to have a policing update. What I'll get her to do is send emails round, really, for committee members and all members. Councillor Johnson?
It's important that we listen to Sarah. Is she coming?
Yeah, she's 5 minutes away. Are you happy that we take a short break, and then we'll come back?
Take a short break.
Are we happy for that? Lovely.
Yeah.
Then I'll agenda. We'll go for a little rest, quick rest, and then we'll resume when Councillor Trotter's here. All right. Thank you for that, committee. Thank you. Thank you for that. We're going to restart the meeting. Pleased to say that Councillor Trotter's arrived. So in any other business, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Trotter for an update on the police. Thank you.
Do you want me to sit down? Thank you, Madam Chairman. I won't sound mate. I planned to sort of fit in with the meeting, but you were efficient and got everything done. So apologies anyway. You've had to have a little break for me. So just for those of you who weren't here on Monday, I'm the Police and Crime Panel SKDC member. So I've been doing it now, I can't remember exactly, but I was elected in 2019 and pretty much, I think I probably started in 2020. I've been on the panel since, which I'm extremely grateful for. Obviously, a lot of you probably know my career was in the police, so I've, you know, still got a great lot of understanding and respect for the police, and I'm very pleased that I'm still some partly engaged. So, the reason that Madam Chairman asked me to come today, and I think we discussed it earlier in the week. Some of you were at the meeting, the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Monday, and I briefly explained that Lincolnshire Police have had to move into an enhanced phase of monitoring. So the whole reason I've come today is just to go through the report. I know it's been sent to you all, but we all get bombarded with reports, so I understand if not all of you have had a chance to read it. And then really the main focus of me being here today is to take any questions which I probably won't be able to answer personally, but we have got a Police and Crime Panel meeting on the 10th. So that's been put in the diary, the 10th of January, and that's at the LCC offices where we now hold our meetings. And then there is actually a meeting that His Majesty Inspectorate is meeting the Chief Constable Paul Gibson and Commissioner Mark Jones and their team on the 22nd of January in London. So it's a good opportunity for us to pass on any questions, obviously from yourselves or through residents, etc. So that's what I'm here for. I'm basically the sponge to pass on anything that we need to ask. So if I won't go through all the report, because like a lot of these reports, there's a lot of figures, a lot of data, but I just want to go through what it's about and going forward, what does His Majesty Inspectorate expect of Lincolnshire Police. So as I said, Lincolnshire Police have been moved to enhanced monitoring of policing. So in October 2024, they carried out a police efficiency, effectiveness and legitimacy inspection of Lincolnshire Police. And during this inspection, they identified 5 causes of concern. As a result, His Majesty Chief Inspector Andy Cook concluded that the basis of these concerns, Lincolnshire Police should move into engaged. Just to explain the monitoring process, it does consist of 2 stages, scan and engage. All police forces are in routine monitoring under the scan stage by default, but they may be escalated to the enhanced monitoring under the engage stage if there are any significant causes of concern. So we are at the Lincolnshire Police is at the beginning of the process, and hopefully it would hope that they would come off it and not escalate to the full process. So His Majesty's Inspectorate intended to publish his decision to place a force in engage on Friday the 6th of December, and I think this is when it came out in the local media. And the monitoring process, it's operating a continuous monitoring approach. HM inspectors routinely monitor the performance of all police forces in England and Wales. And there are 2 stages, as I explained. Scan is the default phase of monitoring for which we use a range of data and information to identify potential areas of concern. And then the force is asked, the engaged, understandably, are asked to develop an improvement plan. So the issues that they've brought up are 5. The force needs to attend calls for service in line with its published target attendance time. The force needs to improve how it allocates, supervises and carries out investigations to make sure victims get the support they need. Thirdly, the force needs to make sure that it has capacity and capability to manage the risk posed to the public by registered sex offenders. Fourth, the force needs to improve its understanding of demand. And finally, the force doesn't have adequate strategic plans in place. Okay, what I'll do is I'll briefly go through each of these, and I think I explained on Monday, a lot of this is down to lack of funding. I'm not saying it's all as a result of lack of funding, but when you read through the report, you'll understand that it's a huge area, as you know, Lincolnshire Police, and it's a big area to police, but it hasn't got the density of conurbation like the city forces, where a lot of the money is forwarded to. So what I'll do is go through each one. I think this is probably the easiest thing to do. So, I think the first one is every control room, when they get a call in, has a graded response. I'm not sure how Lincolnshire Police grade it, but when I was in the force, if you got a grade 1, that was that it was urgent. You get to it as quick as you can. You put your blues and 2s on and ignore, but go as fast as you can to deal with the situation. And then it comes down in grading. As I say, I don't personally know what Lincolnshire Police is grading, but what they found, the inspectorate found, was that the police attended calls within the required time in only 49 out of 93 cases. This means it had met its graded response targets only in 52.6% of the cases. They found out that there wasn't effective and appropriate supervision for response deployment, and only identified this 14 out of 52 cases. The force isn't updating callers. In other words, when someone puts a call in, they're not getting feedback as they should be for a victim assessment. We found out that callers were updated in delays of about 29 out of 48 cases. Lincolnshire Police had looked at this. In June 2024, the force had identified it had response times problems, and it set up a strategic management group to address this. And how they did this, the group focused on changes to the force graded response policy. Non-priority calls are now dealt with an instant resolution team in the force control room, instead of being allocated to response patrols. The force only introduced operation resource over the summer months using overtime, so that additional officers could work on reducing the backlog of calls requiring police attendance. Unfortunately, this has not led to improvements. Attendance times for emergency and priority incidents are still outside of the target time. So in the force control room, there's an IT system called Guardian, and this is used to manage calls and dispatch police resources. So this system identifies which police patrols are available to attend incidents, but they found dispatch personnel weren't always using this information to assign patrols to the incidents, and were making general requests by the radio for any free patrols to volunteer to attend the incidents. Although the managers did tell the inspectorate the practice had stopped, doing the field work, they found out it was still continuing. So that's one of the issues. The recommendations that he's come up with are attend calls for service in line with its published attendance time, make sure it updates callers if there is delays in attending an incident, make sure it effectively supervises deployment decisions in the control room, make sure that call handlers use information on the Guardian system to directly assign available response officers to the incident. Are you okay? It's a lot of information, and I know you've got it, but it's sometimes easier to just go through it. Yeah, tell me to stop if I've said enough. So, this is a second cause of concern. They found that they hadn't made enough progress in improving the standard of investigations since the 2021-22 Peel inspection. As a result, not enough offenders are being brought to justice. And I think this is probably a problem across the country. Although Force does have governance arrangements and processes in place, we have found crime investigations weren't managed as effectively as they could do. And we found that the Force wasn't always applying its crime allocation policy. This means that some investigations are allocated to officers who don't have the appropriate level of training and accreditation for investigating more serious and complex crimes. I explained on Monday, and this is from the heart because that's my career in policing, in being a detective. There is a lack of CID at the moment. I think, you know, when you the old-fashioned detective, you did get, won't say perks, but you did get a plain clothes allowance, you did get extra money for being a detective. If you're a DC now, you're exactly the same as a PC in money, etc. It is just not encouraging as many to join CID. I know that was a problem when I was in the police. You've got a lot more responsibility. You are investigating. You know, it's a really good job, like being a police constable, being a detective, but it's just not able to attract officers who are willing to firstly sit the exam and then be scrutinised for 2 years to be able to do the job. As I say, I won't speak for Lincolnshire Police. It's changing and evolving all the time, how they train detectives, but I think generally that is it. You sit an exam and then you're monitored, and then you become an accredited detective, and then you go through your different levels of interviewing skills, etc. So, but again, you know, if the officers aren't there, then this is obviously causing a problem. So, Lincolnshire Police is also failing to support victims under the revised Code of Practice for Victims of Crime. All victims are entitled to need assessment. The police should carry out an assessment early on a case to establish where victims need extra support during investigation or later in court. That can include, you know, vulnerable victims, including children, victims of serious crime, etc. So they do need that special support both within the investigation and when it goes to court, because you know, court can be extremely intimidating, and it's we've all heard there's delays in the courts, etc. So victims have to wait longer to go to court, etc. So that causes a problem. So their recommendations for it: investigations are allocated in a timely way to officers and teams that have enough skills and experience to carry out quality investigations. It creates investigation plans where applicable with supervisory oversight so that it takes all investigative opportunities. It is using outcomes that comply with Force and national policies. Make sure that a victim's needs assessment is carried out and victim contact is completed when appropriate. Now on to the all the management of sexual and violent offenders. Team doesn't have capacity to manage and reduce the backlog of arms on RMPS. I haven't even checked. Police are brilliant for acronyms. I can't keep up with them all, so I will find out exactly what they are. Sorry, I should have done it before. This has resulted in an overworked workload backlog that the force have been unable to reduce over a 4-month period. They found that there weren't enough offender officers and supervisors to address the backlog. They found that 1 offender manager to 65 offenders in the community. These managers also had a further caseload of offenders in custody or living abroad, which increased the ratio to 1 manager to 86 offenders. Nationally, forces are moving towards a ratio of 1 manager to 50 offenders in the community. So that's that. The recommendations: it has enough personnel and supervisors in its management of sexual and violent offenders team to manage registered sex offenders. All personnel are management personnel are trained and accredited to College of Policing Professionalisation Investigations Programme Level 1. It completes active risk management system and risk management plan visits to avoid large overdue workloads. Supervisors have manageable workloads and violent and sex offender registers. Supervisor tasks are completed within 28 days. I think, I'm reading through it now and thinking, that's a good recommendation, but you need the resources. And with resources, I think you need the investment. Do you want to? Sorry, Tim.
Do you think these special measures or whatever it is that we're going into now, do you think that will release more funds from national government?
I honestly don't know. That is a good question, though, and that is one that I'll take back. Obviously, I'll get the minutes. It's a good question. It should do. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Housen, can you just use your mic? Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it should do because it's proven a need for it.
Yeah. Oh,
obviously there's something amiss there, so it's proven that there's a need for it, and hopefully that will enable the government to come forward with some more much needed funding.
No, I totally agree, and I think you were here on Monday, weren't you? You weren't. Sorry, Tim. So myself and Councillor Dilks is the County Council representative, and both of us, along with other panel members, have questioned the funding formula from the government. Obviously, the Conservative government initially and the Labour government, there's just not enough money allocated to Lincolnshire Police, and we had hoped that the new government, they would go back and increase the funds. This looks unlikely, but it is certainly worth pushing that and lobbying that again, because reading this, I just, as a layman and an ex-police officer, I don't know what the answers are. And I'm sure, they're the experts, the Chief Constable, etc. But, no, good question, Pam.
Councillor Johnson, did you have a question?
Thank you, Sarah. Do you think that possibly in some of the areas that the funds that they get are not being used correctly? Do you think there's areas that they're sort of overspending on and should be spending on other ones? I do agree, though, that there isn't enough money, but do you think they're using the funds they've got correctly?
That's certainly, I think with the control room, if there's a system, how good that system is, I don't know, because I've never used it. But it's worth, the Guardian system, I think we need to know a bit more about that. And does it make it more efficient for police response? Are they not using it because it's not working? I think that is definitely a question, Gloria. And And as I say, these are the sort of questions, the good questions, and ones I want to take forward. And I'm sure I'll speak to Phil as well and discuss it. I think I'm going to go on to the final one as well, is about the fleet, Lincolnshire fleet. So that's probably something that we could try and look at as to, is the money being used effectively? But then don't forget how one end of Lincolnshire to another, increasing fuel prices, what vehicles are they using, etc. It isn't contained actually in this report, but they're really good things to try and find out to make improvements. Anyway, I'll just try not to go on too much. Where did I get to? Sorry, bear with me, I've lost my thread. Yeah, so we've gone through, obviously, the other area of concern was there was an area of improvement they identified which has not improved. The force doesn't have capacity in the right places, which is affecting force performance. For example, it isn't meeting response time frames, there are delays in investigation, and some specialist services lack capacity. They found that the force was extensively using overtime to meet the demand. The force told us the overtime budget was nearly exhausted mid-year. This isn't a substantial approach to meeting demand in key areas. So they're obviously using overtime to cover lack of resources again, unfortunately, to cover what needs doing. The force should continue to review its operating model and implement any changes efficiently. The recommendations are senior leaders can assess accurate data and analysis so they can identify demand pressures and address current challenges related to capacity, and project teams have efficient governance in place to oversee change programmes and have enough capacity to complete the work efficiently. Next cause of concern, this is to do with the fleets. The force don't have adequate strategic plans in place. Senior leaders in the force haven't had enough control over strategic planning and oversight since 2021-22. The lack of effective governance and management of force performance has negatively affected all areas. Despite the financial pressures, they have several areas of inefficiency, including the force's vehicle fleet and estate strategy. The force told us it had closed 17 of its unused buildings to save costs, but it hasn't sold any of the buildings. So that's probably a key point, what's going on there. Some of the remaining 37 operational buildings are underused and have few people working from them. The Police and Crime Commissioner is responsible for the estate, but senior leaders are responsible for operational efficiency and value for money. The force should review how it uses the estate and its management strategy so that it can be better met current and future needs. Senior leaders in the force lack oversight of some areas of expenditure, such as the vehicle fleet. The arrangements at the time of our inspection for managing fleet size and allocation were ineffective. At the time of our inspection, the force had 462 vehicles, but there were only 5.7% of the time on average. The force should review its fleet management plans to make sure its investments provide value for money and the workforce has what it needs to be efficient and productive. Lincolnshire Police receives one of the lowest levels of funding per 1,000 population compared to most forces in England and Wales. But its financial plans aren't aligned with other corporate plans such as workforce, IT, fleet and estate strategy. It isn't clear how the force can continue to provide the current level of policing within its anticipated budgets, and it also isn't fully understood its demand and operating costs. This means that the force can't be sure that its current operating model will help it to meet future demands. The future to plan efficiently means the force isn't helping to provide its community, including its most vulnerable members, with the expected standing of service. So finally, the recommendations develop clear and aligned finance, savings and efficiency plans to show what is required to provide a service that meets the policing needs of the community, both now and in the future. Develop departmental, operational and strategic plans that are aligned and informed by accurate information and a detailed performance framework. So that's the report in a nutshell. I think for those of you who weren't here, like Tim, etc., we mustn't forget how hard our officers work. I know it is quite depressing read, and there are clearly room for improvement, but like I say, we mustn't take away from how Lincolnshire is a relatively safe place to live. And I think the Chief Executive was here on Monday and said that the working relationship with the management team is greatly improved over the last couple of years. And I think a lot of that is down to the change of Chief Inspector. Inspector Hilson is in charge of the Grantham area. And I think, you know, he's doing his best to improve things locally. I can't say anything bad about the service when I've approached them for the residents and any queries I have. But anyway, enough waffling on. If you've got any more questions that you want me to take back, please feel free.
Councillor Bird, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes, thank you. I think you just touched on it slightly at the end of your report there. It would be helpful, I think, for us to have an understanding of how the funding for Lincolnshire compares to other forces. When you say we're sort of one of the lowest funding, that surely should be something that we can all kind of look at, and perhaps you got it. Yeah. So is there something we can do as a council to lobby to say, at least if we could have the same funding rather than less funding than everywhere, that might be sort of something that we could help to push for. There doesn't seem to be any rational reason why a county the size of Lincolnshire should have less funding than other forces. Yes, but if it's a per population, there must be a rationale for it, and clearly the outcome of being underfunded is not great. So it's kind of that there seems to be something in that, and whether as a council we can kind of lobby in some way for fair funding, given the size of the county. The other one is it's a slight concern that if it becomes sort of widely known that Lincolnshire police force is struggling to sort of meet its requirements for serving the community, whether that puts us as a county slightly at risk of, well, I'm not quite sure what risk of what, but so I'm not trying to find the right words there, but it could be seen as an easy place for bad things to be happening, you know. And the other thing I'd be quite interested in the future is some understanding of what the cross-boundary sort of arrangements are, because we're directly on the border with Peterborough, and Peterborough, the ne'er-do-wells, if I say, do know that they can sort of come across the border very, very quickly and into an area where the policing is not as sort of focused, I should say, on the boundary edges. So we have, our police station is closed. We have no police stationed in Deeping, so it makes us slightly vulnerable as well. So fortunately, again, Deeping is a good and safe place to be. But I'm just thinking going forward, we don't want to feel that this current situation is going to put residents at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back with anything, Sarah, at this point?
Yes, I do. I did actually try and get hold of Inspector Hilson. I mean, obviously, short notice and he's extremely busy, but I will try and get him to come and give some reassurance. I will say, I'm not in the police, but the way I look at it, if it is being focused on now, Lincolnshire Police, I'm sure they'll be doing their utmost to make improvements. I don't think they're on their own, Lincolnshire Police. Yes, they've been looked at, that they need to move into it enhanced, but I don't think it makes us any less safe than we are. But as I say, I'm not a police officer anymore, but it's just the way it is. You heard on the radio this week the chief constable for Essex Police. He said there's a real problem. I've got to get rid of officers. I haven't got the budget. So yes, we're not on our own, sadly. But hopefully it doesn't. The police will still go out and do the same job. I don't think it's the things that have been identified. Yes, I think there's a hole with victims, and there's obviously maybe things financially, with the funding for fleets, etc., and buildings. But I think the actual officers on the beat are doing their very best and will continue. You don't do that job unless you want to.
Thank you, Sarah. Charmaine, did you have a question?
Yeah, or comment. In my former life, I was a business improvement consultant, and there were a few, for me, red flags that are really coming out of that report. It's not so much around what's happening with the officers on the ground, on the beat. It's the management. There are a number of issues clearly coming out of here around prioritisation of work, how we're allocating resources, a lack of understanding of the finances. There's some really fundamental issues here. And I'm not sure why that is. Is it to do with the training of the senior management? Is it that they're so overloaded that they actually aren't being able to get their head around it? But what strikes me is you're not going to, lack of strategic leadership, that should be ringing alarm bells. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you can't get your house in order at that level, everything else will follow all the way down, and it has a direct impact on your frontline services and the service that can be provided to the public. But also it undermines any argument, picking up what Gloria was saying. And I'm the last person who would normally make a statement like this, because I'm normally, let's put more funding in, and clearly there is an issue about funding, but it undermines your arguments for funding when you've got messages like that coming back. So, but the first thing that's going to happen is an MP or a minister's going to turn around and say, get your house in order first, and then come back to me for more money. I am aware of some local. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear if I lean back. I'm aware of some really poor decisions that have been made locally. Just one example, and this is because I happen to have friends who work in the local force, or who worked in the local force. For example, we had the movement of the police station onto the Earlswood estate, which isn't centrally located for the town. It's great for the Earlswood estate to get to, but not for the rest of the town. Once they did that, they then removed the cars from the officers on duty, so they were required to walk to their beat. So if you actually if you've got, which I have Grantham South and Grantham North, by the time in their shift, they'd actually walked all the way to their area, the Harrowby estate, for example, had to come back home again, because they'd used all their shift time. So the only part of town that really got very well covered, just under that one decision, was actually the town centre, because they're all crossing the town centre and will then get called in to instance in the town centre. So it sucked. That one decision sucked resources away. That's just one I'm aware of. there are direct impacts on my residents. I've got to say this, although I feel sorry for the officers on the front line, and I do believe they're doing a really good job, and I've actually had the pleasure of working with some recently around the shop security scheme that we've got. They're also real victims. I have had to deal with a teenage girl who was raped, and there was video evidence on a phone of that incident, and it was not pursued, and she became suicidal.
Councillor Morgan, just be very careful what we do bring into the public domain.
I'm not giving any. I'm not mentioning any names.
Excuse me.
And it was a long time
I know
ago.
you didn't, but it's just those sort of cases that I think, as councillors, we need to be respectful of. So just be careful.
I'm actually, in a way, giving that person a voice because they were heartbroken at the service they got. I also had a resident recently.
I think we're going off piece, really. We're talking at the Lincolnshire level, and I do appreciate these cases are relevant to our resident, but what Sarah's here to do, Councillor Trotter, is to bring any comments back to the panel. So if we can just narrow that down, please, Councillor Morgan.
Okay, well, what I will say is just a reminder: there are real victims at the end of all of this, not just statistics. If I put it like that. I think that there are issues. I totally agree with Councillor Bird's comment. I think we need to be lobbying for more money, but at the same time, I do think they need to put a house in order, and it isn't news. I've been a member for 14 years, and for 14 years, actually, we've had very similar or the same coming back. So I'm concerned that we are potentially facing almost like a cliff edge here, because on a perfect storm, picking up the point made regarding Lincolnshire and will we become a soft touch? Well, we're on the A1, we're on the A52, and we're starting to see an increase in, for example, drugs coming into the area. We've got extra pressures on our police, which the government, I have to say, have failed to really pick up at all. And that's the amount of resources they're having to deal with now with online fraud and the risk to elderly, etc., that's coming out of that. And we're talking huge figures, potential life savings lost from that. There's been very little impetus from the government to actually back the people doing that work. And it is hugely time consuming. And then on the flip side of this, you've got what prosecutions will take place after investigation.
Charmaine, sorry, I'm just going to try and bring it in a bit. Are there any comments or ideas that you want to send back to the policing panel?
Yeah,
can we just narrow back down to that, please?
Yeah, one tip, if I wear my old hat for free, is they need to step back from it all and start looking at the prioritisation of what they're doing. When you've got limited resources, it's absolutely crucial that's what they do. And I don't think that's happening.
Thank you. Councillor Trush, can I just ask, do they have a plan? What have the actual police have said? I know it's an early stage for them, but I'm guessing they're going through all these processes of looking internally and looking externally. And I do think funding's an issue, but I just wondered what they've actually said themselves.
It's a constant. The Commissioner is constantly going back and asking for more funding, and he does get what he can out of each pot that's offered by the government. He is very good at trying to get what money he can. I think Karen mentioned that we'd got a lot of money for safer streets, which has been helpful. What I will say to Councillor Morgan, I hear your frustration, but having worn the shoes, we're in the modern age. Everyone's got a phone, everyone's got a laptop, there's Wi-Fi. Believe you me, when you're doing an investigation, and particularly, I would say, a criminal very often has many phones, and that also takes the officers off the street. It is a minefield, and the paperwork, we hear these very sad stories, safeguarding issues. There's all the red tape and paperwork that goes with this. So I'm not making excuses. for some of the things, you know, if there's a pot of money, let's spend it wisely, and I understand that. But I do believe that police are doing the very best to their ability. And there's always going to. I've dealt with victims, terrible. You know, I could tell you, you know, I got phone calls morning, noon and night with some victims because in their world, they're the only victim. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm sorry that you've dealt with a serious case like that. However, if the police aren't here to respond and they don't know the personal case, I think the chairman's right. We've just got to deal with how can Lincolnshire Police improve? Money, is there any more source for funding, etc.? That's what we need to look at. And I don't want to sound negative. It's not as if the police haven't been trying, the Commissioner hasn't been trying. And this is the first time that I'm aware of that they've been moved into enhanced monitoring. So, although it's hard reading, it's been brought to the headlights, and there's only room for improvement now, isn't there? So I'm trying to be positive.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor Trotter, for bringing that information. I think as a Rural and Communities Committee, we do need to know where we sit with the police, but also, you know, the fact that they are now going to have to make strides to improve. But let's hope that goes hand in hand with funding. You know, let's hope that that is reviewed, the way that we are allocated, Lincolnshire is allocated. So, yeah, thank you for that. If there's no further comments, Councillor Leadenham, sorry.
The only thing I would like to add to that is there anything as a committee we could do to show our support to the Chief Constable and the PCC on behalf of our committee? Just say to them that, you know, as Chair, write to them saying, we understand the problems, we're fully supportive of you, and any funding you can get, and you know, basically SKDC are supporting voter confidence in the force. I mean, you know, I'm a rural ward. 3 weeks ago, I had the PCC and Inspector Hilson at our ward briefing, and you know, Mark Jones laid it out in front of us that it's intelligent-led policing because of the funding and the lack of officers. They've got 9 PCSOs. They did have 10, but Patrick's now moved and he's now training police officers. They're not replacing him, which was my area PCC, and they are now relying on us as residents to fill in the gaps, and they'll react. But that's all what the funds have got. I mean, our local rural PC Mark Barr, he's been off for about 2.5 years, but he's now back to work. But it's all about more than what we can do in our communities. I mean, the towns, you are very lucky that you do actually see the police. When we see them, that means there's been a problem, unfortunately. And of course, it's even worse in my ward that we border Leicestershire, and they have the same problem, that they're not reaching out to all their areas, so we're in like a bit of a no man's land. And, you know, it is something we've got to do and more, but I just think as a committee that we should be supporting and showing our support to the police. It is hard, and like Councillor Harrison said, hopefully now that, you know, we have been put on the spotlight, hopefully that will force them to give us more funding. And I think this is probably the main reason that the PCC's probably stepped down from his mayoral race, is because he's prioritising what's good for the county, not for himself. So I think we just need to show support. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm more than happy if the committee agrees that I do write a letter in support of their actions and then moving forward, if that makes sense. Yeah, Councillor Morgan?
A further thought given picking out the issues regarding the strategy and leadership side of things. Are they actually planning to pull in any additional resource there to help them with that, the improvement plan? Or are they relying on their own internal resource, so they're getting any external support?
I can't answer that, and I'm sure behind closed doors, that's been discussed. It was only brought out last week about these measures. They haven't had their meeting in London. What I will say, we must remember, Paul Gibson's a new Chief Constable. He's not been in post for a year yet as well. So, you know, obviously he's got that responsibility now. So that's, you know, I did meet him and we did interview him on the panel, and he's a very experienced officer, and his career started in Grantham, so I hope he's got a passion particularly for South Kesteven. But I do agree with Robert completely. It's very easy to knock the police. You know, we have good and bad dealings with the police. Get you speeding, someone's out there with a gun. Obviously it doesn't make you feel too good, but I have to say, they are there if you need them. That's what I've found as a rural councillor. Yes, my biggest issue is we never see a police officer, but they will update you with reports if you ask for it. If you email Mark, he does come back to you. So we've just got to support them, I think. I mean, I sent an email of support as well when I received this, but really good idea from the committee. If I hear on the radio, on television once or twice, the police getting knocked, and it's just not a job that many people want to do now, sadly. But it is a really good job. Very good job.
Thank you. Any other comments? I mean, I'm more than happy to do that, so I will draft and get one sent in for support. Thank you, Councillor Trotter, for bringing that. I think it was a thing we needed to know, and you know, an issue to discuss. So I hope you've got points back from our committee to take back to the panel. So thank you.
Yeah, if I could ask Joshua if I could get would I be able to get the minutes fairly early for my meeting? I mean, I've written down, but I'd be really grateful if I could get a copy of them to take with me and raise our concerns. Thank you very much, Nikki, and I hope it was a bit helpful. No, it's a pleasure, and believe you me, we will keep, Phil and I will keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. And if there's nothing further... Do you need us to vote? I think it's just a verbal request. Thank you, Councillor Moore, because I'm more than happy, and I think there's a unanimous nod of heads, so yeah, I'm more than happy. So if there's nothing further, I'll close the meeting. Thank you ever so much, and thank you again, Councillor Trotter. So